Hello everybody and welcome back to another round of the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship here this season. As we get over the halfway mark, we come to Aragon for the second of our 45-minute feature races, and indeed the start of a second half of the season that is going to be very, very interesting. After a chaotic Montreal sprint round last week, Sebastian Eskandari's championship lead has just been cut into a little bit, giving a little bit of hope to those chasing him in the title fight. It's myself, Ian O'Leary, and Rhys Gardner with you tonight, with George Cook behind the cameras as always. Good to be back alongside you, Rhys, at this a little bit unusual racetrack, has to be said. Round 5 from Aragon, and as I say, it comes off the back of perhaps the most chaotic pair of races we've seen in this series history. Certainly so far this season. It was madness last week.
Yeah, it was an absolute bloodbath at Montreal. We had the biggest pile-up we've ever seen in this series. Loads of cars with heavy damage not making it to the finish, and as you say, quite a bit of ramifications for the championship as well. But we do come to Aragon, a track that is more famous for motorcycle racing than it is for car racing, but a perfectly serviceable circuit nonetheless, and one that's quite fun to drive around, especially in a lower level open wheeler like this. It's going to be a fun time.
It absolutely is. Using the layout that you can see on your screen, it's going to be rather unusual circuit, but we'll get into that. Sebastian Eskandari is still the championship leader by 28 points now. His gap over Jackson Rihanna, who won the second race last week, don't forget. Craig Edwards is still up there. He's still third, although 51 points now behind Eskandari. Further behind him, Danny Davis and Thomas Hinz round out the top 5. Hinz only a few points in front of Scott Bartine in 6th, with Mark Hilly all the way down in 7th in his title defence. Ocean Colangelo, Tom Donoghue, Alex Stevens round out the top 10. All of these gold class drivers, in fact the top 20 overall now, are all gold class drivers, as you can see on your screen, all the way down to David Gallo, who is on 111 points in 20th place. He is also a gold, and he's also 20th overall. There's been some changes in the silver class, which I will let's talk you through in a moment. Alexi Watson, though, is leader by 12 points over Miguel Costa Texera. 5 points further back is Chris Little, with Matt Tesorero and Justin McLaren running at the top 5. Marcus Knitska and Anthony Bate are the last two drivers who've got some serious points on the board so far. And then Nathan Verney, Jackie Chung and Chris Swadling round out the top 10. Alexi Watson, for reference, is 21st overall in the championship standings. So it is all golds at the front. And you may notice that is a big difference compared to weeks before, and it is, because moving up to gold are Ryan Borg, Aidan Coote and Mitchell Campbell, who were all deemed too quick for the silver class, so they've been moved up. Mitchell Campbell was 13th, Ryan Borg 15th, and where is the other one? I can't quite see Aidan Coote for the moment. 11th, there we are. I couldn't see. 11th place for him, and yeah, they have all been moved up to gold as a result. So we look forward to seeing what they can do in their new class, if indeed that's going to be, if indeed they're going to be here today. I know Mitchell Campbell sadly isn't, which is a shame. We always see these mid-season changes, Rhys. Those are the last, by the way, of the season. But I do wonder how those drivers feel, actually. They've gone from a class in which they were definitely one of the quickest at, and they would have been fighting for a silver championship. Now they're sort of mid-pack in the golds. I do wonder whether they're a little bit disappointed almost to move up to gold.
Oh, I'm sure they would be to an extent, but I mean, the numbers really speak for themselves. The admins have told us that Mitchell Campbell's pace was 2.5 times the average pace of silver, and we're not exactly sure how they calculated that specifically, but I mean, that just goes to show Mitchell Campbell, we're already well aware, was far and away the class of the silver field, and it makes sense that he's moved up now. Yeah,
I think so. It's It's what the championships are going to look like, or sorry, the lineups rather are going to look like for the rest of the year. The rest of the season. Let's have a look at qualifying here and see what's going on out on the circuit. It is so far no laps being set, although the first times are just about to come through. And as you can see, there's all sorts going on down here. This is the run down towards turn 16. Oh dear, and Craig Edwards. Well, I can't say I've ever seen that before. He's cut the corner and he's gone through the grass, hit the final corner. I'm not entirely sure what he's waiting for. It's a good job there's more than 10 minutes remaining in this session, and I hope he's not having any sort of technical fault and he's just waiting for a bit of clean air, and I think it is the latter rather than the former. That's rather unusual, but there you go. He's found a bit of clean air now, and he will try and use it to get a bit further up towards the front here in this qualifying session, one that's going to be very, very important indeed for the for his season, you would say. Just over halfway, he's just slipped to 51 points behind now.
Yeah, certainly. He's been quite a contender. So an onboard lap here at Aragon. It's a very fun track, flat out of turn 1 all the way up here to turn 5. That is beyond track limits there for Craig Edwards. Track limit rules here are quite liberal. As long as you keep 2 wheels on those red and yellow curbs, you are clear. If you put the center of all 4 wheels off onto that green painted asphalt beyond the curbs, then that is considered off the circuit. And the curbs here at Aragon being a motorcycle racetrack first and foremost, they are very flat and wide curbs. So you're going to be seeing drivers all over them all throughout the night. Out of that little dive down the hill, which is said to be inspired by the corkscrew at Laguna Seca, then this little detour off the main straight here adds a few extra corners to the circuit and a potential extra overtaking opportunity if you mess up acceleration out of this corner here. And then the back straight. This being the Grand Prix layout, we will be using that final hairpin, and it's the slowest corner on the circuit by far. Apex speed of about 60 kilometers per hour, which is around about 40-ish miles per hour for those of you in non-metric land. Look at how much Edwards has to crank the wheel over to even get the car through the corner. And through these last 2 turns, you need to keep an eye out for those domes there on the apexes. They are the sort of anti-cut turtles that stop drivers from cutting the corner too much. Hit one of those and you're going into the air.
Yes, it's one of those modern racetracks that sadly has those, which is a bit of a shame, but never mind. It's the way that it is. Eskandari moves up to the top then, 48.8, his current best. And I do wonder what the last round last week is going to have done for his momentum, because up until the second race last week, he hadn't finished outside of the top 3. 16th position, his finishing position for race 2. Well, his closest rival, Jackson Rihanna, took the victory. It just seemed that a familiar pattern is emerging. I mean, Jackson Rihanna was about this distance away from Mark Hilly, who was in the ascendancy at this time last season. But Skandari hasn't been in this situation before in an FDL league, and you do wonder what last week will have done for his momentum, because it was a chaotic week last week, and well, so far it doesn't look like his speed has taken a hit, although I noticed he wasn't fastest of the field in practice. He is still fastest early on in this qualifying session, maybe showing that he isn't necessarily affected by the trouble of last week.
Yeah, I think that he had enough of a cushion in the championship lead that he could afford to have a bad round, and he'll be hoping that Montreal was his one bad round of the season as more times come in. Marcus Konitska going to provisional pole in the silver class, 5th overall as Mark Healy takes overall provisional pole position. That brings the time down a little bit more. Healy was able to set a 1:48.1 in practice. He's about 0.6 of a second off his ultimate pace at the moment. I'm sure that we'll see those times come down further as the session wears on. 7 minutes to go, and well, we're seeing more and more drivers get great laps in. Danny Davison to 2nd and Kane Ryder to 4th. Got to wait and see if there's any further improvements from Eskandari, Rihanna, Edwards as well. I think Craig Edwards is really struggling to get a time on the board at the moment. Sam Mort, who made his debut in the series last round due to a spot opening up from a driver pulling out. He had an incredibly successful debut round of the series at Montreal, winning one of the races, and he's currently put himself 6th in qualifying, so things are looking good for him.
Yeah, I mean, if I was him, I'd have been tempted not to race again because he had a 100% pole record after 2 races. I would have kept that.
Me
but
too.
Obviously, he's more competitive than me, and he probably believes he can get one again. But 6th at the moment it is, just over half a second away from Mark Healy. I don't know if you saw as well in the week, by the way, an announcement in the Discord, and I won't go through all the names and whatever of people who, of different drivers' situations, but I do notice that the stewards and Tom more specifically put out a statement based on the incident seen so far. You know, it was all a bit of fun for us to watch last week. You know, the chaos at Montreal, and there certainly was a lot of it. But it's worth remembering that, or saying, I should say, that in the last couple of, or the last 4 rounds, we've seen almost double the amount of incidents that we've seen in the first 4 rounds of any other series in the FDL's history over the course of this year. So Race Control have very much issued a warning to the drivers to tone it down a little bit, and I think they will be perhaps even firmer with drivers who are causing incidents today, which well, maybe make for a different race than what we saw last week. But I thought it was very interesting that that was released in the week, and in effectively a warning to everybody about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Montreal really spoke for itself, didn't it? I think the nature of the circuit did play a part in all of the incidents that we saw. A high-speed circuit with walls very close. Aragon is very much a modern venue with expansive runoff areas. You almost lose the track in the amount of runoff there is. So I think that might result in a cleaner round anyway, but yeah, I think it's sensible for Race Control to put that sort of statement out and just let the drivers know, look, we're watching, and you know, this is a very competitive championship. Numerous drivers taking part in this. We have 38 drivers still in the server at the moment, so you know, the more cars you fit on a track, the more likelihood for incidents you're going to have. So, yeah, a sensible decision just to let the drivers know that they really need to tone it down, and hopefully we can get exciting racing while having less drivers upset after proceedings are done.
Yeah, and less incidents as well. But let's see whether those words have been listened to in the week, as Edwards and Escandario come over the line again. It's a real train here in this pack, and it's one of those circuits in these cars where you can make a bit of a difference with slipstream, and Escandari has done there. He's nearly 3 tenths in front of Dave Davison now. Oh, and Bartine there. I'm not sure whether he actually made contact, Scott Bartine, but moving somebody out the way. And this has been a decent qualifying so far from Scott Bartine, but looking for even more now, looking for one last lap that's just going to push him a little bit further up the field from that 5th position. Let's see if it does, because it's going to be a last chance very soon, final 3 minutes of this session.
Yeah, this being a single race server, once the timer hits 0, if you're on a lap, you will be able to finish it. So there could be a couple more chances remaining for the drivers. Bartine making his way then through this diversion that the Grand Prix circuit has. He's not all over the curbs here. I think he might have backed off just a little bit. It might well have been contact that we saw just a few moments ago, but I suppose the story will be told when he crosses the line next. Bartine needs 0.2 of a second to get himself onto the top 3, onto the second row of the grid. Eskandari has brought the pole time down to a 1:48.2, and the likes of Mark Healy struggling to match that in the interim, Aiden Coote making a small improvement up to 13th, and Bartine here coming through the last couple of corners now, going to get a little bit of slipstream assistance coming across the line. We'll see if this lap ends up counting. 148.828, so it did count, but unfortunately about 100th of a second off his max.
Unfortunately so. And so he'll have to go around again and give it one more go. Davison goes over the line as well. That's nowhere near his best. Same for Eskandari. They are teammates now, of course, these two, and so the fact that they are 1 and 2 will probably be deemed as a success, no matter which way round they actually end up here for the two of them. Craig Edwards down in 6th place at the moment. Other big names as far as the championship are concerned. Jackson Rihanna has been quiet in this session. He's 10th at the moment. Thomas Hinz, who still rounds out the top 5. We never really see Thomas Hinz in these races, but he always seems to get good results, and he always seems to be about 5th in the championship. So he's down in 16th, now 17th again, as Giuliano Sinese moves up to the top 10, and Jackson Rihanna outside the top 10. This has not been a good session for the driver. Just 28 points back in this championship.
Yeah, he'll be hoping that he can make some improvement here if he's even on a lap that he can do at the moment. I think he will see an improvement. He's getting some slipstream assistance from his teammate in silver, Michael Brennan, and is coming up to the end of a lap now. So here's hoping that Rihanna can bring that challenge and sort of limit the damage that this qualifying session has had. Unfortunately, he locks up at the final hairpin, and that will cost him some valuable time, probably to the tune of about a second. Timer hits 0, and that's crunch time. If you're on a lap, you can finish it. If you haven't been able to make it around in time, your session is done.
Yep, and it will be for so many. Eskandari is looking unchallenged here at the front of the session. He is going to come across the line here in a moment, and he might just put this one even further out of sight. Third sector purple for the championship leader. Can he just put this one extra out of reach for everybody else as he comes over the line for the final time? He will go no quicker. From what I can see there, I don't see a time having come through at all, actually. Sam Mort is, meantime, in the final corners at the moment as well. Less than 4 tenths behind Eskandari. He'll do well to get anywhere near that time. Oh, dear.
Okay, that's one way to end your qualifying session.
Oh, no, and someone was coming through there as well. And that's all a bit of a laugh and a joke, but you do have to be careful with bouncing back onto the racetrack like that, because there will be some people still coming through to complete lap times, although, of course, not many from inside the top 10.
Indeed. Eskandari, for the record, seemed to be giving some slipstream assistance to his Max Boost teammate, Kane Ryder, who was granted 1 extra position as a result of that. He improved up to 8th. And broke into the 1 minute 48 second bracket for the first time in the session. So now we wait to see what Tom Donoghue, Aiden Coote, and Dylan Little will be able to do here. It looks to me like Little able to make an improvement from 28th up to 23rd, and well, we'll see if Aiden Coote ends up committing to the end of this lap. It doesn't look like he will, and it looks like our league administrator, Tom Donoghue, is done as well. So I think that just about settles qualifying. Few drivers pushing the limits at the end of the session, and I think we can confirm it. That's it.
That is it for the session. So 15 minutes qualifying over, and it's no surprise who has ended up at the top. It is Sebastian Eskandari who will take the pole, as we will see in a moment for this grid when it comes through. But there is the aerial view of the Aragon circuit up here in the north-ish of Spain. Very sort of dry up here, as much as Spain is, of course. As you can see, not really near anywhere. It's very, very rural back up here. Not too hilly, especially by Spanish standards, but it is a very, very dry racetrack, and we're expecting it to remain so as well here, as in this race, that is. As we have a look at the grid, it's Sebastian Eskandari who will be on the pole, ahead of Danny Davison, Sam Mort and Tom Donoghue on row 2, one of Donoghue's better qualifying performances of the season. Mark Killey, defending champions, 5th, ahead of Scott Bartime, with Craig Edwards and Angus Milne on row 4. Kane Ryder and Mitchell Campbell round out the top 10. Giuliano Sinese and Jackson Rihanna's all the way down in 12th, with Matthew Vincent and Aidan Coote then on row 7. Marcus Konieczka is on the silver class pole, with Dion O'Neill alongside. Thomas Hinds and Jason Madden then on row 9, ahead of Alex Stevens and Ryan Borg, who round out the top 20. Doug Cowens is behind, or ahead of Chris Little rather, on row 11, Dylan Little and Migo Costa Texera. It's Mitchell Albert and James Cassett on row 13, Madeline McGee and Daniel Byrne on row 14. Anthony Bate and Scott Pocock round out the top 30. Lexi Watson, Tristan McLaren on row 16, with Matt Tesorero and Chris Swadling behind. Form rider Nathan Burney, the last driver to set times. Michael Brennan and David Gallo, the only other ones in the race, should make up 38. It's another massive field, Reese. We never seem to see numbers declining in this series. It's always a massive entry, and we see this once again here today at one of the more unusual circuits. 26 degrees down there on the track temperature, just after half past midday. So thankfully not too warm as it could have been here today, and drivers will be very pleased that it isn't.
Yes, of course. Spain generally warm and dry, but it is November, which is getting into winter in Europe, so things do start to cool down around here. Reasonably long run to turn 1 here. The start line, as you can see, just at the start of that curb that's on the entry to turn 1, round about the 150 meter marker that you'll find. So getting the standing start nailed is essential, obviously, but I do wonder how many drivers are going to be able to make gains here, because turn 1 is quite open at this circuit, and it's going to be quite a long stretch of flat out running in the first part of the first lap, so all the momentum you can preserve will be essential here on lap 1.
It certainly will. It's about 30 seconds to go until the lights will come on, unless Brennan gets himself onto the grid soon, and we'll be going even quicker, in which case this is the second feature race of the season. Still another one yet to come at Sebring as we get into the second half of the season. It's the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship, second half of season 4. We are underway as Eskandari looks to hold on to the lead from his teammate in towards turn 1. He will do successfully, with Davison just tucking in behind. Then in third position, Sam Moore will retain his position. Mark Killey in the background gains a place from Tom Donoghue. That's the only change though inside the top 5 on a very clean start through turn 1 and 2.
Yeah, a couple of drivers coming a cropper at the back of the field, though. Miguel Costa Texera, as well as Anthony Bate and Daniel Byrne were involved in a coming together at the first turn. That was towards the back of the field. The front has no concern for such tomfoolery. Sebastian Eskandari and Danny Davison away to that 1-2 for Team Max Boost. Sam Mort holding on to third. Kane Ryder losing 1 position off the start of the race as they all try to cram their way into the descending downhill S-bend. And now this is going to be a bit follow the leader through this part of the lap. The next big overtaking opportunity will be at that hairpin. And I've got to wonder how many drivers are actually going to make it through on cold tyres.
It's a really tight hairpin, so we're going to see just how they get on through there as they come through this rather large and odd chicane out of turn 15, and that's where you need the exit. Eskandari's already got half a second, but of course it's his teammate right behind him, so he won't be the one who's looking in his mirrors too much. It'll be Davison himself, I'd imagine. Here comes Mark Killey down the inside of Sam Mort on the run down the hill here to the final corner. Or the final hairpin, I should say. Oh, Davison very nearly hits his teammate Eskandari into the hairpin, and he spins himself around. Tom Donoghue also loses a couple of places in the type here, and it looks like he's actually got off outside the top 10 now. But Danny Davison drops to the latter portion of the top 20 after locking it up into the hairpin and spinning all the way round from second position.
That's a shame. Sam Mort taking great advantage of that to gain one position, but immediately losing it to Mark Healy, who gets into second place. Things are really starting to close up here in the middle part of this field. That's Jackson Rihanna trying to get up the inside of Aidan Coote, and he's managed to get it done. Looks like Mitchell Campbell and Giuliano Sinese have had a problem as well. They are falling well outside the top 20 now. It looks like that's happened down at turn 5, I believe. Unsure exactly on turn counts, but a few drivers having big dramas here in the opening laps. Got to wonder if they'll be able to clean this up going forward.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's what race control and league owner Tom Donahue requested, of course, for things to just calm down in this race. I can tell you that already there was an incident in qualifying to look at, and also a couple of incidents from the race so far as well. Miguel Costa Teixeira has already got a 5-second time penalty for an incident with Daniel Byrne. This is what happened to Donahue. So he just had to go wide to avoid Danny Davison there. Pretty unlucky, actually, for Tom Donahue. And then, obviously, there's no easy way to rejoin the circuit like that, especially when they're all so close behind him.
Yeah, and the fact that there's a right-hander immediately after that hairpin, everyone's going to be turning right into you as you rejoin the racetrack on the outside. So the fight then for this 4th position. Craig Edwards leading that charge, but Bartine, Milne and Ryder are very close. Kane Ryder, to be exact. This is what happened to Teixeira on the first lap. He got sandwiched between the 2 team cars there, and in recovering, unfortunately, ended up running into Daniel Byrne. So that's a real shame for Byrne in particular. He was sort of an innocent victim of all of that, but I suppose you could say the same for Teixeira as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There is the confirmation of the penalty there. 5 seconds. So not an ideal start for him. Already stops coming in, by the way, down the back end of the field. And this will be for guys who've had trouble so far, although quite a lot of them in already. Expecting the first pit stop window to be anywhere between now and sort of lap 10-ish. We'll see whether they, or how many indeed, decide to go for that. Oh, my word. Anthony Bate ending up high off the ground and slides backwards straight into somebody else, loses his rear wing, and he'll be one of those down pit lane at the moment. So much trouble down into turn 16. It's a very, very, very tight hairpin, and so perhaps unsurprising, although a little bit of clumsy contact really there in the braking zone between those two.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they were quite aware of or had much spatial awareness there. It can be difficult in a corner like that. The final hairpin is technically an alternate layout of this circuit. The bikes who mostly use this track go for the more sweeping final corner that you see diverting off to the right about here. And it does look like it's the same width going into this final hairpin, but really the line through it makes it quite a narrow sequence. So you've got to really consolidate yourself and be assertive when you're trying to pass while avoiding making that contact. Fastest lap of the race so far now for Mark Healy. 148.5. He and Eskandari have gotten themselves some good time over Sam Mort, and we'll see a potential recovery here from the Max Boost driver who fell down the order on his way out of the hairpin here. Kane Ryder on the back of Angus Milne, but having to back out of it there coming into the 5th corner. It's going to be all about the exit through these turns. A lot of the corners in this first sector are quite open, so you need a car that's pointy. Not that pointy though, getting a bit crossed up over the curb.
That was very pointy there for Kane Ryder. Just behind, by the way, is Jackson Rihanna in 8th place at the moment. He's just got himself ahead of Dion O'Neill and Aidan Coote, who round out the top 10 at the moment. Rihanna, of course, 2nd place in the championship coming into today, just 28 points behind the championship leading Sebastian Eskandari and race leading Sebastian Eskandari as well so far tonight. You can lose a lot of points when you're having one of these days if you're Rihanna, and so he's got to be very, very careful that he limits the damage here today. Looks like it could be difficult to catch Eskandari and do anything about him, but he could very much have a much worse result than this with a bit of contact or a mistake. So he's got to limit that and try and limit the damage, as I say, to Eskandari, that surely or it looks like anyway that it's going to happen to him today.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it's good for him that Healy is really the only car he's fighting with at the moment. There's a potential move there from Dion O'Neill, but Jackson Rihanna sees the way is clear into the hairpin, defending the position. The car that we saw going off the circuit there just a few moments ago was Danny Davison. He managed to recover back to 14th place, but he's ended up losing a couple more positions besides, and it's going to be a big struggle for the man who started on the front row to work his way back up. He'll be hoping for a safety car at some point over the course of this race. That'll certainly shake things up. But we're not far away from having that first pit stop come to the fore. We are expecting 2 pit stops in this race without safety car intervention, but what race control is thinking the drivers are going to do is, that's Alex Stevens, I think, going off there. What race control think the drivers will be doing is trying to stay out as long as they can so that they can fill the fuel tank up to the max and try and stretch it as much towards the end as they can. A safety car would certainly complicate that.
Yeah, it definitely would. So far, no such interventions though, which is good. That's Rihanna again. We'll have to look in the mirrors at O'Neill, who's coming down the inside now into the chicane. Oh, run around the outside into turn 12. Impressively done in terms of keeping O'Neill behind, and Aidan Coote is going to fancy his chances now as well. Inside at turn 14, and Aidan Coote goes through into 9th. So Rihanna did well there to hold off O'Neill, because that could have been 2 positions lost in 1, but just doesn't look like he's quite got the speed around here for whatever reason. He's just not quite got the speed, and he's under pressure now coming down towards turn 16. Here comes Aidan Coote on the straight in the slipstream and to the outside line. He's going to be just in front by the time they get the braking zone, but he doesn't have the right line, and Rihanna will keep 8th place for now.
Yes, but how does he hold up in terms of speed through these last couple of corners? Coote's still very much in the slipstream. Rihanna going defensive again. It's really obvious to me that Rihanna's straight line speed is suffering a little bit, and I'm not sure of the reason why. Maybe he picked up damage somewhere. Aidan Coote is very strong in the slipstream, but just seems to lose out on the way into the corners. Rihanna, whatever issues he's facing, is doing a good job of mitigating them. Next car into pit lane is Matthew Vince in the number 62, and pit stops for the most part have been drivers repairing damage. Stops of only a few seconds each, but Matthew Vince has the longest stop so far at 7.5 seconds. I don't think that's quite enough for a fuel fill.
Well, let's see how deep they go into this race, but as we look at a replay of Jason Madden here, who has forgotten about the chicane. He, well, or he doesn't care. Oh no! Oh dear!
Hardware failure?
I didn't realise that was there. Yeah, maybe, I suppose, but it looked like he was still turning. But yeah, anyway. That is a layout, by the way, you can use in iRacing. The missing out the chicane entirely. To be honest with you, I think it's a better layout when you take out these 4 corners here, but there you go. As far as chicanes go, don't mind it too much. At least they've tried to make it look like proper corners, but it does break up the rhythm, I think, a little bit, and potentially a really long back straight, which could provide big slipstreaming opportunity all the way down to turn 16, although maybe you wouldn't want everybody, especially on lap 1, crawling all over each other on the back straight quite in the way they would do if that chicane wasn't there.
Yeah, it does assist in breaking up the field a little bit and maybe minimizing mishaps going into that final hairpin. But once you get up to speed, once you have some gaps between cars, there's a lot of great opportunities for massive slipstream. Craig Edwards there in turn 1, meanwhile, defending still from Scott Bartine. They seem to be holding on to pace versus Angus Milne and Kane Ryder behind. I think they'll be content to fight with each other in the short term, but they have well and truly lost touch with the top 3. Sam Mort, you can see just up ahead there, he's got himself round about 2-3 seconds that Craig Edwards and Scott Bartine would have to make up. They might have to play some strategy shenanigans in order to narrow that gap, but for the moment their focus is on each other. Bartine a little bit sooner to the apex there than Edwards, but oftentimes through corners like that, you'll find that you get a better exit by leaving that turn in just a little bit later. And this isn't a clear passing opportunity, but Bartine will certainly have a go if the moment calls for it. Regardless, I think it's just a waiting game to see if he can save some fuel, maybe extend his stint a little more, and regain on Edwards when the first pit stop comes around. Yeah,
it's very helpful in this series to have that pit stop there, incentivises fuel saving a little bit. As we approach 1/3 distance in this race already, that's the end of lap 7. It will be for Eskandari at the end of this lap. Oh dear, and that was a strange line from Alexei Watson, who's down to 35th, unfortunately, after qualifying on pole in the silver class. Is now a very, very long way down as we go to Kane Ryder and Angus Milne, who are also fighting for 6th position here. Everybody inside the top 15, by the way, has made up places other than Sam Morton, Sebastian Eskandari, who haven't moved anywhere. So you can certainly see the pattern of this race because of that, as Mitchell Campbell and Chris Little go side by side out of the hairpin here, and Donahue pitched from this group, and so does Little. Tristan McLaren pitched from this group. He's seen the two battling in front of him and thought, I don't want any part of this, and probably correct to do so as well. Inside for Little, and he goes through on Campbell, responding after that what happened at the hairpin. Here comes Campbell again, responding after what happened at turn 1. He's on the inside for turn 2 and 3. He's back in front again, so you can absolutely see why Tristan McLaren got out of the way of this.
I love the exchanges that take place through that sequence of corners. Last time we saw Tristan McLaren, he was limping to the line in the final race at Montreal. Hopefully he has a better run today at Little. Obviously looking quick here versus Mitchell Campbell, but Campbell, as we've highlighted recently, getting bumped up to gold, and I think you just saw one of the reasons why he's so pacey. He wants to maximize every single exit around here. I think he just managed to keep it within track limits there. The slipstream is obviously strong, but I feel like the straights here, at least in the first part of the circuit, aren't quite long enough for them to take advantage. It's going to require some bravery to make passes around here.
Yeah, that definitely is. And you do want that balance. You don't want it to be too easy to make overtakes. You don't want it to be too impossible either. Don't think we've seen any of the circuits on this calendar anyway where it's been impossible just for the moment. But you never know. Might be one of the later rounds as Sebastian Eskandari and Mark Hilly are less than a second separated now for the first time in a while. Hilly 2 attempts quicker that time round, even though Eskandari set a personal best. He got it off track somewhere. That must be something to just think about here. I mean, to be fair, in open wheel racing, you don't often make contact without having bigger problems than the incident limit. But in terms of off tracks, this circuit is one of the easier ones. So if Eskandari's been picking up a lot so far in the first 8 laps, then he will be concerned about that. And Hilly definitely gaining as a result of that. Fastest lap last time around with a 48.3, but he does need to repeat that for a few laps if he's going to get close or closer to the race leader.
Hilly, of course, the reigning champion of this series, so he has experience in situations like this and overcoming whatever is thrown his way. But you make a very good point about the off tracks and how easy they are to get around here. The incident limit for this series is 17 incidents before you get an automatic drive-through applied, and then every 10 incidents more thereafter. So we'll be keeping a close eye on what our leaders do here, how hard they push, how far off track they end up running. Oh dear, a little bit of a technical problem there for Mark Healy. We've seen that from him before, and it doesn't seem to have hurt him all that much, so I think that's going to be okay. One of the defining characteristics of this circuit is that green asphalt that lines both sides of the racetrack the whole way round. Oh, hello, here we go. This is significant. Leaders coming in.
Here we go. Eskandari leads them in, and well, we speculated at the start whether they could get to lap 10, and they can, but not all of them choosing to here, or maybe not all of them able to. Scott Bartine he goes on and leads a lap for the first time in a while, but everybody behind is coming in. Everybody all the way down to the top 21 in this field hadn't pitted yet, so expect to see it very busy down pit lane. Marcus Knitska is also out. Eskandari's pit stop slightly shorter than Hilly's, and so they are out 1 and 2, and they're slightly further apart than they were before. The rest of them will be on their way out in an orderly fashion, but Scott Bartine will lead this race just for the moment. Eskandari will be the net race leader. A couple attempts further ahead of Mark Hilly, who was just getting back into slipstream range there. That was quite nicely timed for Eskandari, that requirement to stop.
Yeah, for sure. And he ended up gaining about 0.8 of a second or so on pit stop time on Healy. The battle between Jackson Rihanna and Aiden Coote resumes in anger, with Rihanna 4.5 seconds stopped in the box, and Aiden Coote 5.3 seconds in the box. But interestingly, Coote was half a second faster through the entire lane. It's not just your pit stop time that defines how successful a trip through the pits is. How aggressively you enter the pit lane, how aggressively you enter and exit your pit box is a major factor as well. The entire races have been won and lost on that alone.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the movers and shakers so far, and indeed the pit stop times as well. So Douglas Gowans with the longest one, down in 20th. It's about as double as long as it needed to be there for him, which is going to hold him back a little bit. Aiden Coote and Jackson Rihanna now the highest placed battlers in the field. They'll be fighting for 7th when Bartine and Knitska come into the pit lane, as they are about to. Eskandari with a second again over Healy, so that was really good work through the pit lane there. That's one of the shorter stops we've seen of those in the field. And there they go, retaking the lead just inside 20 minutes. But Eskandari is not crushing the field this time round. You know, we have seen that at times this season, especially when he took both races at Magny-Cours. It felt like he completely crushed the field on that particular occasion. But, of course, winning by 30 seconds nearly at Donington Park. This is not that at all. Mark Hilly is absolutely challenging him all the way, at least so far.
That was quite the off there, looking at, I think that was James Cassar that went off at turn 1 and goes wide to allow Ryan Borg through. Ryan, of course, one of the drivers new to the gold class for this round. And we also saw Scott Bartine exiting pit lane there. I thought for a moment that Bartine might have been able to jump Craig Edwards in the pit cycle, but that hasn't turned out to be the case. They are going to continue their fight as they have been for the rest of the event. And for the moment, we'll see here for Chris Little, I think a bit of a problem through the descending S-bend. Sometimes elevation change does that. It makes the rear end of the car go light, and if you're running your brake bias a little too far back, that can certainly happen. So that's a few positions lost there for Little.
I would say that in this calendar, this is the last circuit with elevation change to deal with, because the next 3 rounds at Snetterton, Sebring and the Bend Motorsports Park, they are all circuits that have basically none. Obviously, Snetterton's on an old airfield, Sebring's in the flattest state of America, and well, I'm not sure where the Bend is geographically, but it's not very hilly at that circuit anyway. So yeah, three circuits without elevation change. This one doesn't have much, as I said, especially by Spain standards, but even so, just catching them out down the hill may be on that occasion, as Danny Davison has a look down the inside of James Cassar, and he does not get through on this occasion through the rather awkward chicane on the exit of turn 16 there, through 17 and then 18. Davison really hasn't made up very much progress since his spin on the opening lap of this race from second.
Yeah, it's been difficult for Mr. Davison there, and I find one thing about Danny Davison that I have noticed this season: he's fast for sure, but his consistency and his ability to avoid mistakes probably needs a bit of work. You know, I think it obviously there was the mistake, obviously, and in the middle of the crush coming into the hairpin on lap 1. There were some mitigating factors there, but his second incident coming into the diversion off the back straight, that was entirely on his own. So let's see if he can reel it in somewhat and work his way back into the top 15. And just on the subject of tracks to come in the calendar, I don't want to step on your toes, Ewan, but the bend does have elevation change, quite a bit of it. But it makes sense that it would be assumed it is in Australia, which is the world's flattest continent. Regardless, yeah, not quite as much elevation change as Aragon. So I think your point still stands there.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll take your comments about the bend. I don't know it very well. I do know it, ish, but it shows how much I do know it if I thought it was flat. So there you go. I know where it goes at least. That's the important part. Kanitska goes through into 12p time from the silver class. He's a long way in front of his silver class rivals. And this will be a big step forward in the championship for him, Marcus Kanitska. So far this season, he's not finished any higher than 13th. And that was in the Donington Park feature round. He's just in front of that finishing position right now. So 12th place for Marcus Kanitska in front of Stevens, who is down to 13th. As we have actually crossed the halfway mark there with the conditions again. We've just gone past 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And it is entering winter in Europe, I'm especially aware. And it's 27 degrees Celsius on the racetrack at the moment. So, I'd say very, very pleasing to the drivers. I think that this is not going to be one of those rounds where they have to worry about the tyre temperatures, particularly. If we're going to continue on with real-world dates and real-world seasons, then the final round of the season will be probably next time they have to worry about track temperature being too high, because in the Northern Hemisphere it is getting colder in November. And it can never be too cold in iRacing, so you don't need to worry about that.
No, that was a nice move from Ryan Borg, by the way. We just saw on the live pictures. Around the outside of League Administrator Tom Donoghue. And it looks like Danny Davison on the recovery is right on the back of them now. Mitchell Campbell has joined him. And Campbell, another driver who's trying to make a big recovery here. Proper 4-car pack now. Can Donoghue fight back versus Ryan Borg? I can see that he's trying to line up the run onto the straight there. It's such a weird line that you have to take through that chicane. You've got to give up so much time at the first apex at the right-hander to open up the left and pick up the slipstream from there. That's exactly what Donoghue's just done. And he is through on Borg before they get to the hairpin. Davison's going to try and follow him through here. Almost 3 wide on the way in. Ryan Borg, as late on the brakes as he dares, is going to keep the position from Davison for the moment, but I think turn 1 beckons for Danny.
Yeah, you wonder whether Davison would have gone for that if he hadn't had his spin through that very corner earlier on in the race, or maybe he just doesn't fancy a 3-wide moment with these two, because Donoghue and Vince are properly going for, or Borg rather, are probably going for this. Borg goes a bit wide, and that's what Davison was waiting for, perhaps intelligently so, although he's not able to get through on the outside through turn 2, and Borg stays in front of him. So his hesitancy has maybe cost him a place or two here, Danny Davison. Again, he has a look down the inside, but he won't be able to do it there. It's always difficult in the middle of a race when you have a sort of moment like he did on the brakes, spinning around, and you know, it just sort of relieves you of any confidence when you're hitting the brakes. And Davison is now just stuck here, it seems, in this group with Borg and Donoghue in front, battling, and he's unable to get in amongst them at the moment, unable to get in between them, and he'll be looking over his shoulder at Mitchell Campbell as well, who's in this group.
Yeah, the onboard that we saw from Davison there was missing a tiny bit of context. Mitchell Campbell was in the middle of trying to pass Davison as Davison was on the back of Borg and Donoghue. So, yeah, a little bit boxed in was Danny Davison. He would prefer some clear air, or at least not having another car behind him, so he could focus eyes forward for the rest of the race and trying to break back into the top 15. But looks like this is where he's going to stay for the time being. He has great pace over these guys, but is unable to take advantage of it. A little bit of a weave down the back straight, and well, Davison is looking as hard as he can for any opportunity to move through at the hairpin, but it seems that Ryan Borg is not willing to let him have it easy.
No, Vince is into pit lane as well with just less than 20 minutes to go, so final stops will be beginning now. Matazarero stays in front of Nathan Verney down into the final chicane here. Verney so far has made up 12 places. Our biggest mover forward. He started at the very back, don't forget, although he's just battling to keep that 12th position gained, because Tristan McLaren is right with him, and he goes down the inside as McLaren and goes through on Nathan Verney. So that's back to, well, it's up to 13 now as well, because there's stoppers and everything, but Tristan McLaren gets in front of Nathan Verney anyway. And these guys are just fighting for small positions here at the back end of the field. Markus Konieczka is going to take a big chunk out of this Silver Class Championship with this result as it stands.
Yeah, he's doing quite well at the moment. We saw Matthew Vince coming into pit lane just then. Unfortunately, it looks like that is the end of his race. He's retired, and Danny Davison serving, or I think has actually reached the incident limit there. That's a black flag to his name. And considering the offs that he's had before, I think he might have just gone off track one too many times and triggered that black flag. He'll be getting a drive through from the iRacing Sim. And that's just going to make an already terrible night even worse for the man who started in second.
Oh, look at this going on here for 11th place. Stevens, Konieczka and Milne on the way to turn 16. And it's Stevens who gets into 11th. Oh, contact. Oh. Konieczka and Milne, and you've got to be so careful as Markus Konieczka here, because he's in the Silver Class lead. He won't want to give positions away for free, but he also cannot afford contact that's going to send him down the field here as Milne comes through on the inside line. He breaks late on the inside, and will he go through? No, he didn't give much space to Konieczka on the outside, who holds firm, and he's still on the inside for 2 and 3. And so Konieczka is not being pushed over here by the Gold Class drivers, but he's got to be careful he doesn't get taken out by one of them.
Yeah, he's got a lot to think about here as, oh, that was almost contact there as well. This is really tough for Angus Milne. Obviously, Konieczka with great pace here, and I think he's in one of those situations where you have to throw caution to the wind at some point. Remember, though, there's still over 16 minutes of this race left to go, and these guys haven't come in for their second stop yet. Second stops have already happened for James Casa and basically everyone below him. Casa's in 25th as things stand. Danny Davison still owes us a pit stop. He's just come out of pit lane having served that drive-through penalty, and he's down in 24th place. I don't know what kind of recovery he can mount from there, aside from a safety car coming out and forcing the hand of those ahead. Angus Milne's trying his best to get the power down here. These Super Formula lights, they handle quite well, and you can really push them hard, but once they snap, it's very difficult to recover them. Milne has the speed, though, down at the back straight. Will he finally be able to make his way past Konieczka?
Into the final hairpin, and Konieczka holds the inside again, and this time he's properly in front. He's not side to side. Oh, was that contact though? Or did they just get loose over the curbs there? Konieczka and Milne. And Milne was the one actually who headed off the circuit briefly. Milne's going to get back into the slipstream on the way towards turn 1. You wonder for Konieczka now whether it would just be worth him letting him go. And Milne again puts the pressure on in towards turn number 1. He still can't get through though. Look at the time they're costing themselves here to Stevens, who's nearly 2 seconds in front of them now.
Yeah, I think that's opportunity gone for the both of them. And Jesus, some really hard defending from Markus Konieczka, isn't it? Although it makes sense that there would be that amount of defending, because don't forget, gold and silver, they aren't classed separately on points. Your overall finishing position decides how many points you get. And I imagine Angus Milne wants to try and, Markus Konieczka wants to try and preserve as many positions as he can between himself and Pocock, which is down there in 19th, the next silver class car. For the moment, though, looks like Milne has succeeded in making his way past. Yeah,
it certainly does. See how long it lasts. Konieczka will have another look, I'm sure, as Mitchell Campbell and Douglas Gowans go side by side into the chicane as well. That was really tight the way towards turn 12. they get away with that. Oh, we're over halfway, over half an hour now into this race. Just less than 15 minutes to go. And out front, Sebastian Eskandari sets a personal best. Craig Edwards comes in to try and upset things, but Mark Healy is just not quite as close as he was, as Kanitska goes very tight to the inside to try and regain the place. If I was him now, I would just let Angus Millen have this position, because, and he might well have just inadvertently done that, because yeah, this gap is one that is too large, I think, and he's just lost too much time in this battle, needlessly as well, with a gold class driver. Yes, it is for points, because overall positions are points here as well, but he's lost a lot of time in these fights.
And that he has. Craig Edwards, the first driver from the tippy top of the field to make his way through pit lane, and it looks like he's re-emerged in 17th spot. Eskandari versus Healy, meanwhile. It looks like Eskandari's really put the hammer down and has extended that gap to 2 seconds for the lead of the race. Well outside slipstream range for Healy. He's going to need a miracle of a pit stop to make his way back past. And this second stop is going to be much shorter than the first.
If the first pit stop times are anything to go by, though, Healy will be a little bit shorter in the box, but even so, as you say, it's going to be very difficult for him to overturn that now. As this is Dion O'Neill, meantime, making his Super Formula Light Series debut tonight, by the way. One of a few drivers who've been entered for this series for a while, but haven't scored any points yet, haven't been at any races. That list of drivers would go down to 3 now. He was the 4th. But now he is making his debut. You've got to say, making a decent account of himself as well. Up 7 places so far. And a top 10 result on debut would be fantastic. Although, point out that it wasn't quite as good as Sam Mort's debut race last week. But a pole to victory is very rare on your first race. And so I've been a bit harsh on O'Neill there. He's having a good run here inside the top 10.
Yeah, not far behind Thomas Hinz either, and we know from past experience Hinzy is always one to keep an eye out for. He's one of the quieter achievers in this series is Thomas Hinz, but always manages to find points where it matters. I think O'Neill will be well served following him around for a bit here, at least until it's time for their pit stop. Speaking of, Tom Donoghue and Ryan Borg are the next drivers to make their way in. Now, pit stop times, Craig Edwards 6.8 seconds, and it looks like Ryan Borg's pit stop 4.8 seconds. That tells me the pit stop is a little bit longer than Edwards would have liked. That might cost him a few positions when everyone else cycles through.
Yeah, let's see. As O'Neill continues on, just in behind Thomas Hinz here. This is the battle for the highest placed position in the field. Coming through the end of lap 19 at the end of this one, it will be. And any time after lap 14, you can stop, make it to the end of the race. And we've known that for some time. We've seen quite a lot of stops from now, although most of the top 20 haven't yet been in for their final stops. Craig Edwards has, and he now finds himself in the middle of a group, by the way, headed by Mitchell Campbell. Douglas Gowans is in there. Mitchell Albert is behind him as well. Edwards has got to be careful he doesn't get caught up in something like this and start to slow down, because that will lose him another position. And again, much like it is as well for Jackson Riada, it is about damage limitation for Craig Edwards here tonight, because it does look like Eskandari is going to go forward unchallenged in these last 10 minutes to a race victory.
Yeah, it seems that way. Eskandari has been the form driver in this season thus far. He did miss out on opening his season with a victory. He did cross the line in first at Mexico City, but due to some safety car closing speed violations, he unfortunately lost that victory. Matt Tesoriero just had a problem here, and yeah, a little bit too crossed up over the curbs. You know, you're trying to go flat out at that point. The car's already loaded up. The curbs may be flat, but they do still have that sawtooth pattern to them, and you run over that the wrong way and you can instantly go for a snap and a spin. So Tesoriero has decided to limit the damage by coming straight into pit lane and get his second stop out of the way. For the moment, still waiting for our final pitters here. About 9 minutes to go, and basically everyone in the top 10 at the moment has yet to make their way in, and Craig Edwards, bit of an unknown at the moment, 2.5 laps into his stint and up behind Doug Gowans at the moment, might find a bit of pace loss there. Unless he can make the move. He's not going to be able to here, though. As I said before, it's very hard to pass in this section of the track. Edwards is going to have to wait for the hairpin. I wonder if he'll be getting frustrated here coming out in traffic, as there's Eskandari making his way into the pits. Healy staying out.
Yeah, going to run out on that low fuel for just a little bit longer here. 8 minutes to go. He should have to pit next lap, to be honest. I can't imagine he'll be able to go much further than that as Craig Edwards now gets properly into the slipstream of Gowans. It's the guys who are pitting now who are going to be around him most in the end of this race. So this could be quite telling. As he goes down the inside of turn 16, he will go through on Gowans quite nicely. But how far is he going to be able to get up the road here? Eskandari already out the pit lane. Sam Mort will follow soon after. Kane Ryder will come through in a moment as well. Will Edwards be in front of him as he exits the pit lane? In fact, he's going to have bigger fish to fry now because Gowans is back through on him. Kane Ryder is back in front. There he goes, just slips in front. Edwards can't afford to get on the wrong side of Gowans here and let Kane Ryder get away, but at the moment it looks like that's what's happening here. He might be denied a place, a chance to get past the Max Boost driver if indeed he can't get past Gowans in the next few moments.
You can see that Edwards was struggling to find a way through on him. The open nature of the corners in the first half of this circuit means you really need massive speed over the car you're trying to pass if you want to actually make the move. You could see that Edwards was making some great gains on the way out of turn 1, but just the nature of the circuit, the way it curves in that first sector, and Doug Gowans having the luxury of being able to choose what line to take, meant Edwards had no chance of getting through. Gowans, worth pointing out, has not come in for a stop yet, so Edwards will probably be getting a little more annoyed here behind Gowans and hoping that he can somehow move out of the way. But patience will have to be key. Miss of the apex there from Gowans as Healy responds and comes into the pits. We'll see how the race lead checks out from there.
Now, will Healy be able to pull a big surprise and get anywhere near Sebastian Eskandari after this pit stop as Edwards comes through on Gowans much the same way he did last time? You'd imagine Gowans is going to be pitting in a moment, so that might be why that time it was so easy. Here comes Hilly. Eskandari goes through on the outside line, and that was expected. Sebastian Eskandari leads, although the gap is smaller than before. He is out front comfortably. Sam Mort will be third next up. Then Kane Ryder and Craig Edwards will be fighting for fourth or fifth. And Scott Bartina's got a filter into this somewhere as well. He might get ahead of Ryder, to be honest, if I were to guess. But let's see if that proves to be the case, as there's only 5 minutes to go after all. It just showed that if there was one safety car, it would have been very possible for them to do it on one stop.
Yeah, certainly would have. I mean, the amount of fuel that you use around the lap here, there's a lot of flat out sections, so a couple of safety car laps would result in mammoth fuel saving. Unfortunately for the drivers who wanted to try that, they won't get that opportunity. We'll check back in here with Dion O'Neill, who now has Alex Stevens for very close company. Thomas Hinz has skipped away from these guys, and it looks like, much like the initial pit stop phase, Scott Bartine has decided to go a lap longer than anyone else. Bit of extra time with less fuel in the tank, a lighter car might prove to his benefit, but we'll have to wait and see on that.
So Bartine comes up towards the end of another lap. Does he finally come in, is the question. Yes, is the answer. And there's only a couple of laps to go after all, so and there might be 3 to go actually for Eskandari. But he's got 2 seconds over Mark Healy. It looks like Eskandari is on his way to his 4th win of the season. The perfect way to bounce back after last week's 16th place finish in the second race, and a real narrowing of the championship margin. He should take the maximum points tonight, said Eskandari, as Bartine makes his way out the pit lane. Is he going to be in front of Sam Mort? It could be close as he comes out the pit lane. He's got quite a way to go out of the pit lane.
Oh!
Ryder and Edwards will Oh, what's happened here?
What's happened there?
What has gone on here? Scott Bartani stopped on the exit of the pit lane for almost no apparent reason. He's still stuck there, and that is the most bizarre retirement for the champion 2 seasons ago. Scott Bartani is out of a top 5 position in this race.
Yeah, okay, so something's gone wrong for Bartine in the pit lane. I'm not entirely sure what to make of it, honestly. I'm checking out his run through pit lane. He stops, presumably in his box, and then immediately gets rolling again. Then he stops once more in the fast lane, and he gets rolling once more. Then he pulls over just past pit exit. I think he might have missed his box. Either that or he didn't have it set up right.
Yeah, I think that those are the 2 only explanations for this. I guess the other explanation is that is weird. That's not an explanation, though, is it? That's a comment. But it is weird. He's where has he got to now? I guess he's. Oh, no, he's still in the session. Sorry,
he's towed though.
The top 30. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming back out.
Okay. Well. I haven't seen many retirements tonight, and if it is going to be a retirement, then it's going to be one of the weirder ones for Scott Bartine, who's 6th place, by the way, coming into tonight. Has had a relatively consistent season, barred a couple of hiccups here or there, especially in the last couple of weeks. But this meantime is one of his teammates, Angus Milne, who's found the wall hard, and that's why he had a meatball not so long ago.
Yeah, I noticed that a little bit earlier. Not entirely sure what caused that crash, but it does seem like he must have run wide coming off the back straight. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Kane Ryder and Craig Edwards both really playing with the limits there in turn 1. I get the feeling they have some off tracks to spare.
Yeah, that's the disadvantage. I mean, whatever happened to grass, but that's why... That's the downside, I suppose, of the off-track system. It does give you a bit of a license to go off circuit willingly in certain places, provided you don't get a slowdown, of course, which are still in effect. You can get away in certain places, and if you do as much practice for these events as these guys do, you'll certainly know where those areas are where you can get away with it. As the final minute is coming up, Eskandari's going to get to the line again to give us another lap, and Edwards will be pleased about that, because that will give him one more chance to limit the damage tonight properly and keep the gap down to Sebastian Eskandari. Jackson Rihanna being in 6th place has limited the damage just about as well as he could have hoped to as well at the end tonight. Here is Edwards, though, coming out of turn 15. He's going to have a go at some point. Not this lap. Doesn't look like he's not quite close enough to Kane Ryder, who's doing his teammate a job here in the Team Max Boost entry. Just up in front of us here. The straight is long enough, it looks like, for Edwards to have a go. The side extension, of course, from the motorcycle corner, which goes through there. You go on a little bit further to the tighter chicane, and Craig Edwards on the outside can't get through. Not for the moment. Kane Ryder again holds on to the place. On to the final lap.
Yes, indeed. One more circuit of Aragon to go, and unfortunately for Mitchell Campbell, you see a black flag next to his name. I think he's the next to fall victim to the incident limit. Edwards draws alongside into turn 1. Is he going to be able to make the move? Look at the speed and the contact between the two of them. Edwards is going to slow up and try and redress the position here. Obviously, he knows that he was the one at fault for that contact. Ryder was carrying so much more speed on the outside there, but that's a shame. It's not how you want to see one of those battles end. See Ryder here coming into turn 1, and yeah, well, you don't see Edwards.
No, that's true. Let's see if we can, from Edwards' point of view there, because I'm not so convinced that it is his fault. Although I've only seen it live. Now Ryder's off. That this could get very messy here in a moment. This is what Edwards saw, though. He's on the inside. I mean, to be fair, he is tracking out wide on the racing line, and the contact might have happened anyway later on in the corner. But for me, Kane Ryder's kind of taking the racing line there, even while he's got someone down his inside. This is getting very awkward now as Edwards is trying to redress the position. Rihanna's catching up very, very quickly. There's a lap car in here as well that wants to get involved. Jackson Rihanna might be able to make up some places late on here, as Sebastian Eskandari is going to come through the final corner in a moment and take victory here at Aragon. He's led almost every lap, although Mark Hilly has pushed him all the way, kept him honest. But the championship leader is going to extend his championship lead with another victory. His fourth of the season. Sebastian Eskandari poled to victory for the fourth time this season, and for the third time it's poled to victory. What's going to happen behind between Ryder, Edwards and Rihanna as Hilly and Mort finish on the podium? It looks like Ryder's enough. Oh, Rihanna down the inside late on. The two who are second and third in the championship make contact into the final hairpin of the race. Rihanna with a last gasp late move. It wasn't ever going to work, I don't think. And Craig Edwards keeps fifth. Rihanna sixth. A manic last lap for Craig Edwards, who ends up with a top five, and Rihanna limits the damage in sixth.
Certainly does, but he had a red hot go of it at the hairpin, didn't he? That was almost F1-esque, seeing that kind of dive there. Rest of the battles seem to be pretty spaced out throughout the field. Ryan Borg, new to gold, is going to finish in 12th ahead of Doug Gowans there. Scott Pocock beating Anthony Bate to 16th spot. And I guess the next closest battle behind all of these guys is Mitchell Campbell is going to cross the line in 18th in the end. Is Chris Little and Matt Tesoriero 24th and 25th. They will cross the line very close together. Danny Davison 23rd in the end. It's a major missed opportunity for Davison.
Yep, it is. Down 21 places so far today. At the end of the day, by the way, the championship will have Rihanna 69 points behind and Edwards 86 behind, based on some very quick maths that I did in my head, so it could be wrong, but that should be the gap that it is roughly. That is a very, very big gap. And actually, you know, you look at these race results, see Eskandari first and obviously his rivals fifth and sixth, you think, well, that won't be actually too much of a loss, but actually they both lost over 30 points, and in this series I'm not sure they can really afford to do that. For example, Rihanna's gap has more than doubled tonight.
Yeah, certainly has. And getting into the second half of the season, that's where you want to really start preserving as many points as you can. There's only going to be 3 more rounds to go after this one. Starting to get to crunch time.
Absolutely is. And it's Sebastian Eskandari who wins tonight by just 1.5 seconds in the end from Mark Hilly. Sam Mort in third. Bit of a gap back to that battle with Kane Ryder, Craig Edwards and Jackson Rihanna, who finish 4th, 5th and 6th. Aiden Coote was catching up there at the end as well. He would have been disappointed that the race ended when it did. Then it's Thomas Hinds, who again doesn't appear on our camera screens, but is again in the top 10. 8th this time. Dion O'Neill 9th on debut, with Alex Stevens running at the top 10. Tom Donahue 11th, ahead of Ryan Borg, with Doug Gowans in 13th place. Marcus Knitsker is the silver winner, although doesn't gain nearly as many points as he was hoping he would over his silver class rivals. Mitchell Albert separates him from the others on the podium. Scott Pocock and Anthony Bate. Mitchell Campbell, Dylan Little and Miguel Costa Texera round out the top 20. Over a minute off the win for Julian Sinese as well. Tristan McLaren, Danny Davison, who drops all the way to 23rd. Chris Little, Matt Tesorero, James Casa, Daniel Byrne, Madeleine McGee and Chris Swadling, the last drivers on the lead lap. Nathan Verney rounds out the top 30. Angus Milne and Vaughan Ryder join him one lap down. Scott Bartine and Alexei Watson retire late on, or at least in Bartine's case, they were 2 laps down. Matthew Vince, the last driver to pick up a point. Jason Madden, David Gallo and Michael Brennan don't do enough for points here tonight. Let's have a chat, shall we, to Sebastian Eskandari, who can now join us, the race winner tonight from Aragon. Sebastian, welcome in. Good to have you with us, and congrats on the win. 1.5 seconds the gap at the line, and you led pretty much every lap, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Just how much pressure were you feeling there throughout that race from Mark Hilly?
Yeah, hi guys. Thank you for having me on tonight. It was an interesting race, especially like the track. There's lots of passing opportunities, and like the slipstream's really powerful in all the straights. So it was something to try to break toe as quick as possible. And as you mentioned, pressure was a little bit pressurizing at the start when the gap was in that perfect toe window. But then it was sort of at the end of the race having to manage the tires that I think I did a little bit better in. But it was still a close race at the end, as you guys saw.
Yeah, certainly was, but the championship is a lot less close after this. Your advantage over Rihanna has more than doubled. and your gap to Edwards has gone to over 80 points, I think, based on some very mental maths. How are you feeling about the championship situation with just 3 rounds to go and seemingly getting back to good form after last week's difficulties at Montreal?
Yeah, last week we had some power outages because I'm in Brisbane, so all the storms were affecting it. So I had a few technical issues, and yeah, just trying to stay focused, not worrying about the championship too much. Otherwise, you sort of get tangled into that, and everything just starts to go downhill from there. So try not to involve myself with the championship and just keep going one race at a time.
Well, congrats on winning your 4th race of the season tonight, Sebastian. Thanks for chatting to us at the end as well.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks very much, Sebastian Eskandari. Winner tonight from Aragon. At the moment, Mark Healy's not there, so we'll go to Sam Mort in the meantime, who's on the podium again, this time in a feature race. Sam, welcome in. Good to have you with us in the FDL series, and of course on the podium for the 2nd week in a row in at least one of the races. Let's talk about this week first, and your run to 3rd position. Seemed a little bit lonely towards the end, but how was your race, and how pleased are you to be back on the podium again?
Yeah, very happy with that one. I mean, I wasn't expecting to probably compete with the top guys this week. Their times looked super impressive in the practice sessions and even in quali. So, yeah, very happy. But yeah, super lonely race. But I prefer that than drama.
Well, absolutely, and if you want drama, obviously we were there last week at Montreal. We just briefly touch on that. A sprint race victory for you from the pole position on your FDL debut. You must be very, very pleased with the way that last week went, at least initially.
Yeah, definitely, it was good. I wasn't expecting to sort of hit the ground running like that, so it was it was very good to have that kind of performance. It was just one of those things with Seb. I feel like it was sort of a racing incident at the end of the day, and he sort of skidded across the grass. But yeah, so I apologise if I didn't give enough room, and yeah, I definitely learned from that last week and was better for it this week.
Absolutely. Well, congrats on another podium here tonight, this time 3rd place at Aragon, and thanks for coming to chat to us at the end as well.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thanks so much. That's Sam Morton, who finishes 3rd tonight from Aragon. Got a good little run together, actually, on his FDL debut in the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship. Marcus Knitska has won in the silver class. Marcus, welcome in. Good to have you with us. 14th place overall and a silver class victory for you tonight. Obviously, the silver class going through a little bit of a change as far as personnel is concerned, but this must be a very pleasing result to you. How are you feeling at the end of this race?
Yeah, thanks, Ewan. Yeah, very happy with that result. I've had a pretty poor start to this season, so it feels good to just sort of tick off like a good race night, good qualifying, pretty straightforward in the race. Got a bit of tow from Alex, from my teammate, so that helped a lot and just sort of settled into a rhythm. Made one mistake at the end there and lost a couple of positions, but overall pretty happy with that.
Yeah, 2nd half of the season and maybe a page turn for you. What would be a success? What would constitute a success in these final 3 rounds for you?
Oh yeah, look, a couple more silver class wins. I think at least maybe one in the last 3 races would be good, and yeah, we'll see where we stack up at the end of the season. But yeah, I think one more win and just staying out of trouble, I think, is the key.
Yeah, well, that's half the game in this series, that's for sure. Congrats on the win tonight in silver, Marcus, and thanks for chatting to us at the end as well.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks very much. That is Marcus Knitska, who wins in the silver class. And while we've been chatting, Mark Hillier has got himself into the waiting room. Don't know if he forgot he finished on the podium or something. Probably not, but he can now join us as well. Mark, welcome in. Good to have you with us. 2nd place tonight, just a 2.5 seconds away from the victory. So pushing Sebastian all the way, but couldn't quite get there. Just tell us how you're feeling at the end of that race with this result and everything. Is it a pleasing 2nd place, if there can be such a thing?
Yeah, no, it's about as pleasing as it can be. Like, grateful to be on the podium, and grateful that I have someone like Seb to race against. It's nice to have someone push me so hard and be able to push someone else so hard. So looking forward to the rest of the season, but yeah, a bit disappointed it wasn't the win.
Yes, it's your second place as well of the season. I'm sure you don't need reminding. But what would sort of constitute a success as far as the rest of the season is concerned, in as far as this championship is concerned? Obviously, you're the reigning champion, but not been the ideal start to the season in the first half anyway. What would be a success in terms of turning that around in the second half now?
Pole and win every race. As always, doesn't really change where I am. My goals don't change depending on where I am in the championship or my last race. I just every event is just, let's see if we can win. So I'm just going to keep doing that. And you know, this event was already an improvement from the last and the one before that. So I'm just going to keep going.
Right, well, we look forward to it for the rest of the season. Mark, congrats tonight on second place, and thanks for chatting to us again after the race.
Oh, thank you, man.
Thanks very much, Mark Healy. Second place tonight in Aragon. And we'll probably move up in the championship, I would imagine. We'll see those championship points now, and provisionally moves up to fourth place, rather. 3 places gained over Davison and Hinds, who weren't actually that far down, especially in Hinds' case. But he drops to 6th place. Unfortunately, as you can see, the faded out number there, Ocean Colangelo, not here today, so she drops outside the top 10, as does Scott Bartine with that late retirement. And so a few move into it. Kane Ryder and Aidan Coote inside the top 10 of the gold class for the first time. And a little bit further down, you can see the silver class drivers. Miguel Costa Texera still the leader there, only 5 points in front of Alexei Watson now, having taken over the lead. Don't forget, Watson was the championship leader at the start, although that might not take into account Texera's penalty, which might cost him some places. I'll see about that very, very soon, but yes, just something worth noting. Konietzko moves up to 27th in the meantime with his silver class victory. One of the quieter races, Rich, or maybe it just feels quiet because of last week, and it was the fact that was so manic, but a nice controlled race at the front from Eskandari, and Hilly pushing him all the way. That was a proper motor race between those two at the front.
Absolutely was. Yeah, I think the bar's been set pretty high for chaos from Montreal last week, but we'll see just how much that is brought back as we go to Snetterton next week. We're, I believe, going to be going back to a sprint event for the Snetterton round, and that will be a fun one for sure. Former airfield circuit in the UK, plenty of passing opportunities around that layout as well.
Absolutely. And we'll be back live, of course, same time, same place, with coverage of that 6th round of the championship. So I hope you'll join us then. It's our final sprint race of the season, a 15-minute sprint followed by a 30-minute feature for the very final time in 2025. So make sure you join us for that. But for now, I've been Neil O'Leary alongside Reece Gardner with Judge Cook behind the cameras of this broadcast tonight of the Player1 Sim Gear Super Formula Lights Championship from Motorland Aragon. We'll be back exactly 1 week time for that Snetterton round at round 6. Hope to see you then. From all of us, for now, it's goodbye.